that actually. Like this is, and anyway, we'll get there. Okay. We don't want to put a big crusty shell on us and then never experience love and hope again,
Yeah.
right? And in order to do that, we have to peel away some of that and be vulnerable. But you don't have to be vulnerable yet. It's okay. Like we're going to work through this together.
Mm.
Okay. All right. Step number two, we'll try and make this one a little quick, is taking care of your immediate needs. Now, my guess is that people on this call today or people that are watching this video are past this step potentially. And the reason I say that is usually if you're in the step that you're not taking care of your most immediate needs, that you're not eating, that you're not getting falling asleep at night, that you're not showering. Usually, if you're there, you're not on Facebook looking for empowering videos. Um, and so my guess is if you're there, you're not watching this. But if you are and you have happened upon this and as a miracle you're listening to what we have to say, then here is the step number two. First of all, you're in a completely normal space. Like this is grief. That what has happened to you just now is the death of the life that you thought you were going to have and the birth of the life that you are actually going to have. And so you have to mourn and grieve that loss. So have a lot of patience and compassion for yourself for being there. But when you do experience that, the first thing that goes is all of your daily routine. And our brains thrive on daily routine. They just love it because it allows our brains to function without having to put in a lot of executive thought, and it saves our brains a lot of energy. But when we're in mourning and grieving something, it's just like it wipes all of that out, all of our habits, all of our routine. And then all of a sudden, we have to use executive function on every stupid menial task that we're not used to doing. And so I just want you to be aware that that's happening to you so that you can have some compassion for yourself for not being able to get out of bed, or whatever the result of that is. But also to challenge you and think about some of your basic necessities that you could be meeting as like a bare minimum survival. Um, Go and like if you're lying awake at night thinking about the betrayal and like replaying scenes over in your head, maybe it's time for you to go to your family doctor and get on a medication that will help you with some anxiety for the time being. Okay. It's not like that means you're going to be on anxiety medication for the rest of your life, but like we want to get your basic needs met. We want to get you back to normal, regular functioning behavior. Okay. So if that means going to see a doctor, getting on some medication, if that means setting an alarm clock so you eat lunch and dinner every day, if that means you're going to have one goal and that one goal is to shower 3 times a week, like it can be that small, but I want you to rebuild your habits during a time that it's really easy to not take care of yourself at all. Okay.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
So, why does our brain do that?
Why does our brain do that?
Yeah, why does our brain do that? What's going on in our brain? Like nothing matters. I don't know what's important. Like what is it that makes us do that?
Yeah. So here's my guess. I'm not a neuroscientist, but I do read a lot of neuroscience books because I
Okay.
think it's fascinating. So I'll give my best guess, but if we ever get a neuroscientist on here that wants to correct me, go for it. Um, we have our prefrontal cortex, okay, and that's in charge of all of the like executive functions of our brain. That's kind of the stuff that like separates us from the monkeys, right?
Or the
Our
teenagers.
ability to yeah, exactly. Not fully developed as a teenager. That's the part of our brains that like make decisions based on long-term solutions, right? And then we have the back of our brain, that deals with our like immediate survival. Okay. And when we experience trauma, it's our brain, I believe, thinks that we're like being chased by a tiger. Okay. And what it does is it literally shuts off, like puts a firewall between our prefrontal cortex and our survival mechanism. And our survival mechanism says, run, there's a tiger. And it mutes any reception that's coming from the prefrontal cortex, because the prefrontal cortex, if we had that in there, then the prefrontal cortex would sit there and it would think, well, is running from the tiger really the best way to solve this problem? Like, we would be stalled, right? And for our immediate survival, we just need to go. And so uh, what we call this is being outside of your window of tolerance. If you wanted to write down that phrase, window of tolerance, is an idea presented by Dan Siegel, Dan, capital Siegel, in his book, The Developing Mind. And it's an aftermath of trauma that basically, like, you have your window of tolerance, and like this is where your brain is working properly like your normal person. But if you are triggered in your trauma, then like you might be right here in your little inside of your window of tolerance doing great, your kids are being noisy, and you very calmly and rationally ask them to be quiet, go into another room, right? But then you get triggered and you bounce out here. Okay. And now all of a sudden you're not inside of your window of tolerance anymore. And you start like behaving in ways that are totally based on like survival response. So now all of a sudden you're yelling at your husband when you have no desire, and sometimes even saying things that like, I don't agree with that. Why? Like, you look back at it later, you're like, I don't even think that. Why did I say that? Right. And that's because you're outside of your window of tolerance. Your executive brain is just not functioning anymore. And so I'm guessing that it's a similar thing when you experience this trauma. You're basically just like triggered 100% of the time. And your brain is like reformatting because it's experienced a death. And so it's like trying to remap all of the things that it already had mapped, because your reality is now different. And so it's like trying to do this really tricky remapping stuff.
Okay.
And it just takes time.